Yes, sir. It's in your eyes, your style, your dashing smile. It's how you move, you groove from side to side. It's in your walk, your talk. My oh my, Malaika, Malaika. It's in your eye, your style, your dashing smile. It's how you move, you groove from side to side. It's in your walk, your talk. My oh my, Malaika. So she smiles like a deity, walks like a queen. I think she's smart. Pair of boxer dropping smile. She talks about cards. I mean, who does that? What girl does that? You'll see how she describes them. Holding up her two fists close to her when she mentions the classiest ones. And that's sneer for the one that sucks. I don't know, it's just a vibe. These moments I love to watch her go on and on. I love the sparkle in her eyes when she is happy and free. I want her to always be happy and free. I love to watch her lips when she's not looking. I love that she calls me happy. I will never get used to it. I love that she likes me. I like her too. Heck, I love me crazy since now. Every time I see you, ah, yeah! I love that she has such a beautiful heart. She is beautiful. I love that she drives me crazy. I love that I can't stop thinking about her. I love that she let me into her light. I love that I let her in too. She greased my locks open. Her essence was the shape of my spare key. My floodgates are open. Your smile, I pray that it never fades. No matter how hard it becomes, I pray you find the reason to smile again. And if you must, let tears stain your queenly face. I pray I will be there to hold you. I wouldn't let go. I promise. I pray you conquer the world. I pray I will be there. I pray I will be there when we do. I pray I will always make you smile and happy and free. Yours? No. Just yours. BNB. I pray you never move.
Good stuff, man.
Ah!
So tell us how your journey started.
My journey has been a long one, but it's been one of, I love to learn from experience. So I learned to jump into the pool, go there, swim with the sharks, get bit or bite them, whichever happens, whichever I'm lucky enough to do, get bitten or bite, and then from there I get out of there with lessons. So I'd say I've fantasized about writing all through growing up, all through primary school, all through high school. I did my first manuscript in high school. Form 3 should be. Wrote a whole story. In essence, I'd say that was my first serious project. And there's a teacher of mine that I really love so much who allowed me to type it out on his computer. So after I had put the whole story down on my book, he allowed me to go on his computer and type it out there, and then finally I had a manuscript. So that was my first sort of story. And after high school, I now got into acting fully, and so I went into traveling theatre completely for another 3 years. Writing poetry, yes, but low-key. And then when I got to campus, my first year of campus, I stumbled into Spoken Heart Thursdays, and it was just an accident. I came, found people there, what's going on at they're performing, they're doing poetry, they're doing music, and there's this something that I had written. I didn't even know it was spoken word poetry. I didn't know what it was. I just wrote it. And I felt, I could perform it. So I asked, what do I have to do to perform? And they said, nothing, just put your name down. So I put my name down, they got me in there. I had a standing ovation. My first ever performance at Spoken Heart. It was overwhelming.
I think I was there.
You were there. CEO was there.
Yeah,
CEO
was
was hosting the show. Ngugi was there. Ngugi Ndegwa, La Poeta, who has his book out right now. I remember he was doing comedy your time. He's grown so much now. He's a published poet. So that was my very first time performing. Before Spoken Heart, I never performed poetry. So after I performed there, got a standing ovation. I never performed the rest of the semester because I didn't know what I'd do. I was scared, but basically that's where the journey started. And working with Spoken Heart all these years and going finally to Poetry Slam Africa, competing there, and now transiting from acting and doing poetry on stage to now doing my own poetry showcases, and to now writing my own plays and directing my own plays, to now having my own team, my own traveling theatre team.
Wow.
So yeah, that has been the journey.
That is quite a good journey. And how has your acting inspired your poetry? So
much so that because acting has taught me to observe, acting has taught me to be very keen, acting has taught me to listen to my audience. So even when I write and when I perform, the fact that I already had the experience all through stage, I knew how to listen to my audience, and that affects me even when I write, such that I'm writing, as much as I'm being my truest self, I'm also mindful of my audience, because I kind of, their voice is somewhere in my head, so I'm thinking about them also. As much as I'm feeding myself, I'm thinking about them in a way, and that is what acting taught me, that relationship between me and the audience, listening to them, listening to how they breathe, just trying out different things. And by the time I'm now, getting into writing seriously and into directing seriously, I'm only using the skills I learned from acting.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what would you say inspires your poetry?
Myself. I listen to myself. I sit down with myself for hours on end. I hear what I think about stuff. When I read, I normally read and listen to music for perspective, because I feel like when you're listening to someone's writing, you're listening to someone's mind. You can, when you're listening actively, not just listening, you can be able to tell, I agree or I don't. If I listen to Natel's music, if I listen to Nazama, I can hear to it and say, okay, I agree with what he's saying or I don't agree. And by engaging that action, you've brought in the element of perspective. So now in essence it has taught you more about yourself, because you listened to Nazama, and because you didn't agree with Ken, you had to find something that you agree with. So if I don't agree with Ken, what's my alternative? And when you find the alternatives, you've understood yourself. So that's how I use myself as an inspiration, just by listening to myself.
And locally, which poet do you look up to, and internationally? Easy,
Mufasa. The first time I saw Mufasa, I didn't even know what performance poetry was. I was only a writer. I was in high school. I said, that's what I want. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to be. I'd say my dreams have come true, because when we did our first poetry showcase in Maseno El Voyage 1, we were able to bring Mufasa in to perform. That is the highest moment of my journey.
That was nice.
I know, you remember that?
That was dope.
Natel was there.
Was dope.
Natel was there. Natel played with me on stage. He accompanied me through the whole set. It was crazy. We had Mufasa coming in. We had a mentor of mine from the acting, a director of mine called James Webo. He came to do a monologue. So it was a grand show. So Mufasa is the one poet I look up to locally, because I just admire what he's done. And I admire the singularity that he has, the fact that he always looks like he's running in his own lane.
Yeah.
So internationally, there's this group of poets called PIA, Poets in Autumn. They are gospel poets. Few of them, Janet X, Ezekiel, who also calls himself Words by Ezekiel, Preston Perry, Jackie Hill Perry. This he calls himself What Is Joe Doing, Chris Webb. So the 5 of them have come up with a system where they travel and tour just to do poetry. So when I saw that happening, I was like, oh my God, you can actually do that. You can actually tour and go to countries. And so when I saw that, I was inspired so much to also come up with my own concept. It's called Poetry in Worship. So me and a few other poets that we've grown together, brothers of mine, and several other people who are not brothers of mine but are staff of mine, if you know what I mean. So we put our minds together. It's an idea that has been growing over years. We didn't start thinking about it yesterday. It's 3 years old now, just thinking about poetry and worship. And we are feeling that as the days go by, we are almost ready to put it on stage. So, and that's just an inspiration from watching Poets in Autumn.
And looking at your journey, you have achieved a lot in these years.
Thank
you. Which is your best achievement? Yenye ulifika hapo ukasema, oh my God, this is what I wanted.
Let me tell you something. I'll be very honest with you. God has been good. And it's all God who's done this. And the way I operate is that I told you earlier that I have impossible standards. And the reason why I have impossible standards is because I have to have them. Because if I don't have them, then I'll get lost in every milestone that I walk into. So I have these impossible standards so that I cushion myself. So I have several highs in my journey, but I have never enjoyed them. I've never sat down to enjoy. Yes, I thought about it the other day. So I'll just randomly list them, right? My first solo poetry showcase was an evening with Saisi at Michael Joseph Center, sponsored by Safaricom, and it was televised. It was televised on Kenyan, on national television. KTN were there, and they called me. They called me to come and and that was just humbling. They came. We had a member of the Australian High Commission in our audience who has been a fan. Wow. The minute he watched Muhammad with the Bible in Nairobi, every show we put up, he comes. Wow. I was so humbled because he dressed casually, yes, with, a very casual jacket, but you see those ambassadorial tags that you have, those flags that diplomats have. Yeah. So he had on his casual wear, but he put on that badge, and it was it was an honor for me. It's an honor. Yeah. Also winning at the British Council competition, poetry competition at the Alchemist. They had a forum where they were asking youth about what are you saying as the youth. It was called My Voice Counts. So the poets were tasked with coming up with a piece that spoke the voice of the youth as accurately and as timely as possible. I'm proud of it so much because the judges were Antonio Sol, a member of Had the Band, the spoken word artist from Had the Band, and Safan Jora, who's like a role model of mine. I look forward to have grown up with him. So those were the judges, people who I admire. So it was a challenge, and my greatest competition was this awesome poet. What's his name? Oh my God, I'm forgetting this. Capedo. Stories of Capedo. So it was a very going against the best of the best was the highest moment of my life. The fact that I won that day and I appeared on newspaper for the first time. And I normally I have that page from the newspaper from that day. I bought that paper that very day. I have it the way it was today. Yeah. Because the first time I appeared on a paper, it was just a name. I was part of a list. And here I was, my face was here and there and here and there, and it was a high moment. I'd be doing a great disservice if I don't mention the fact that I got the absolute privilege of working with the greatest hero of my life, the good Professor Ken Walibora. Being privileged to, I told you earlier in our earlier interview that he is the reason why I fell in love with writing. And when I got the opportunity to work with him, and I got that opportunity, funny enough, not from a very non-writing, something that wasn't even related to writing. I did a show somewhere, we acted, we did Kidagaki Momozia on stage, and this performance stayed in the minds of the people that I worked for at that time. 2 years later, they called me with an opportunity to work with the good professor. It was the best opportunity of my life. Wow. We did 3 years on and off, touring the country, doing Swahili symposia all over the place. We went to Kilgoris, all over the country. And the greatest climax of everything was that when I finally put together my book, he was kind enough to look over it. He's the one who said, send it to me.
Wow.
I'll look over it. He did not charge me. When after he looked over it, he asked me if I would mind if he would write a few words. And I'm thinking,
Oh.
and when he wrote them and sent them back to me, and when the book was finally, alive at the end of the day, and I looked at the product and saw that the greatest hero of my life, if I were to tell my, the classics in me, that do you know that the first time you appear on print, it is Professor Ken Walibora whose name is, and he wrote warm things about my poetry. He actually read the poetry.
Wow.
He actually went through the poetry and he wrote an honest review about it. Yes. And he even had a favorite, which is now my favorite. So out of everything I have done, there are many, but I'd say that working with Prof and having his name appear there was an honor. That is the greatest honor of my life. And even the next project I'm working on, it's a secret this I'm letting slip, but the next project I'm working on is a dedication to him.
Wow.
Nice. So what would you talk about this book in just few words?
In few words, I'd say this book was an initiation. Scarred was an initiation into the big leagues, and it was like the validation, to use a very cheap word. It was the validation of a young boy who's been working at it and trying and not knowing whether not knowing where this will go or what I will do with it. Because even the poems that are here, when I was putting them together, it wasn't to put them in a book. I had never imagined I'd write a book. I have imagined I'd write a book, but I never imagined that my first would be poetry. Yeah. So this is so special to me because it told me poetry is the love of my life. I've been writing poetry consistently for as long as I can remember, on and off, disciplined and undisciplined. But these are the things I struggle at them. Writing every day, writing prose, I struggle at them. But poetry, I can just be traveling one day and I listen to something on the radio in the car and I'm thinking, that's amazing, and then I whip out my phone and then I type out something.
You poets just write about everything. I can be telling you a story now and the next time I'm saying it.
It's a poem. It's a poem. You listen to a director called Quentin Tarantino and he says, I love him so much because of his storytelling. Because it takes you on a journey and a journey and a journey. So many things inside the journey. And he was being asked about his process and he says, we'd be going out with friends and something funny happens and his friends go into the movie and they see it and they're thinking, so only the difference that how I interpret it on the page, you might not really know that this is what you experienced, because I use that as a guinea pig, a specimen, and then I rework it and I reshape it and I give it new life. So when it appears on the page, it has a life of its own.
And at any point in life, have you ever regretted anything you have done?
First of all, thank you, because I've never been asked that question before. Wow. And second of all, now that I've been asked this question and I'm thinking about it, I realize now that I have regretted, yes, I have made some pretty big decisions in my life, because for me to be able to do the act that I do in the level that I do it now, of course I'm not at the level that I want to be eventually, but at the level that I am now, because there's 5 years of work behind this level. So to be able to operate at this level, I had to choose. I had to make choices here and there, and some of those choices had very tough consequences. Not everyone understands, and I don't blame them, because this is new. Yeah. So not everyone would see the craziness of what you're doing to be genius, or the craziness of what you're doing to be right, or to be wise, or this is what they normally say, it's not the right time, you have to wait, just finish this and then you'll have all the time in the world to do that. But me, I don't wait. By the time I'm having all the time in the world to do that, I have moved on to the next thing. So the best answer to this is that I have never regretted anything I have done art related. Never. All the things I have sacrificed for my art, never. But on the flip side, those other things, yes, I might have regretted. Those ones I might have regretted. But my art, anything I've ever put out, anything I have put on stage, anything I have recorded, anything I have written or directed, never ever regretted once. Simply because everything I do, I give 1,000%.
And to a young boy or a young person or a young girl who is out there looking at you and you are his or her mentor, what do you say to them?
You can't cheat time. It's as simple as that. You cannot cheat time.
Any inspiration to them?
You have to go through the motions. You have to go through the processes. and you have to respect the process. I was advised by two artists that I really respect, and they told me the work is the most important thing. The excellence of the work is rare. The fan base is there and everywhere. The fan base will never ever stop because people will never ever stop being born. So the fan base is there. It's as basic as that.
Yeah.
But you see, the excellence of the work is not everywhere. So that's where your edge is. That is what will give you greatness. So you just isolate the people. The people are hungry. They are always hungry. You see, the people will still be hungry 5 years from now. So if I give them something that if I give them something that I think if I hold it back for 5 years it will be better, and I give it to them now, yes, they will enjoy it, but it's such a disservice because in 5 years' time they'll still be hungry. So what do? Hold it. Take your time. Lupita said the other day of Chadwick that he never wasted time, but he took his time. So you can't cheat time, you can't cheat the process. Ken knows this.
Yeah, true.
So you take your time, make sure your attention is on the work. You are striving for excellence in the work. You know, and the more you go deeper into your work, the more you know yourself. The more you know yourself, Jay-Z says that you can't achieve greatness if you don't know yourself. Greatness begins with knowledge of self. So you have to understand yourself so that you know you're making decisions for yourself. You're deciding to use this stylistic device for yourself. You're deciding to go this way because you know why you're going this road, because you have decided to go down that road. And take your time. If you have projects that you feel are big ideas, big projects, don't be in a hurry to do them tomorrow. No one will kill you. No one will imprison you. Just keep them there. Let them grow. When their time will come, their time will come.
Yeah.
Steve Jobs says that just like matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it.
You know.
And one funny question now, I'll ask you, would you rather be with your phone or with your friends?
This is a funny question. Now, recently I've watched a documentary that made me very angry. It's explaining, social media, and they're interviewing guys who are former founders, and they talk about how they invest money to get in psychology to work against your own psychology. That social media in essence has been designed to capture you, to grasp you, to put you there, to keep you scrolling. And it made me very angry because me, I am a millennial also. So pia mimi niko kwa hiyo, unajua, so it made me so angry. But then again, it made me angry because it found me at a level where I was now actively disconnecting myself from it. So the best answer is, I'd say, these things are not bad, but when you're listening to yourself, you're taking time and spending time with yourself, you'll get to a point where you see the things that we are trying to cover up when we use social media, like, because there are things we are trying to escape from. So now when you get the courage to now confront those things, you will now have the capacity to say, I'll not work with my phone today. Those things we are trying to run away from, those things we don't want to deal with. If we are able to amass the courage, and that courage will only come from sitting with yourself and going there. So if you amass the courage to think about those things, you'll now get the courage to deal with them, to fight them, fight your insecurities, fight your fears, embrace your strengths. By embracing your strengths, you're bulging, you're getting more confident in yourself, your work is getting better. You realize you don't have time for it. Not really in a bad way, but you don't have time for it in a let me mask my insecurities kind of way. And again, this is just my own personal experience, right? Because I don't know what other experiences are. It's tricky because I use this as this is our work for some of us, most of us as artists, right? We sell our books through the media, we sell our albums through the media. So it begs balance. It begs you to employ some balance where you can. I was listening to something about dopamine fasting, where you starve yourself a little. So you starve yourself from it, and then go experience life. And then reward yourself by now indulging. So what I indulge on football gossip. Udakuza ball, man. I am on that.
Which your favorite team?
Manchester United.
Oh yeah,
go Manchester United, right? So now you see, I'm sorry I'm giving such a long answer. So you see, when it all comes down to knowing yourself and being confident and comfortable with yourself. I said that first because your question said, is it phone or friends? But I felt that by knowing yourself, it makes my relations and my interactions with my friends richer. Why? Because now I have something to say. So it's not really about just put away your phone so that we can relate. You must be able to put away your phone even when you are by yourself. When you're by yourself, you can put away your phone so that you know yourself. So that when you meet your friend, the next time you're having a conversation, you have things to contribute. And you also have things to contribute. So
one last word to your fans.
One last word.
Talk to your people, man. Talk to your people.
I call them saints.
I
call them saints because first they play on the words, Saisi, saints. And then again, it's I've never explained this before, so I think this is a perfect opportunity to do this. Saints, it's like it's the irony, right? Because you think saints and you think holiness, you think purity. So it's the irony, because I feel like what makes us human, it's our our flaws. Our flaws make us human. So in essence, Scripture says no one is righteous. Righteousness is a different whole matter, but it says no one is holy, right? But we're all chasing holiness. So the fact that no one is holy, it means we're all at the same level. So why can't we all be saints? You get what I'm saying? So so it happened to work well because also my name is Saisi and then saints. But in essence, I'll say this to the people that have been, first of all, man, you guys have been so faithful and so loyal over the years. I could not have done this without you. There are people, I went through my Instagram the other day and I could see that most of the people that followed me are people that have followed me since the days of Spoken Heart, through Poetry Slam Africa, through El Voyage, and they have been there, man. They have been loyal, and they are silent, most of them. I know them, I see you guys, you're silent, but you're there, you're always there to buy books, you're always there to buy the albums, you're always there to come for the shows. We write crazy plays, you come and see them and you get blown away by them. Thank you for the support. I see people sharing my poetry on their statuses. Sometimes I'm not able to respond to them all. That makes me look like such a celebrity. I'm not. But that's what it's about at the end of the day. Right? That's what it's about at the end of the day. The fact that sometimes I'm normally going through statuses at random. I'm like, let me just see what people are saying. And then I meet someone who has posted me. Someone has posted a poem or a clip of a performance, and it warms my heart so much. So I am because you are. I exist because you guys have believed in me. I've always known my poetry and my work is crazy from the very beginning. And I've always known that those that would stick with me to the very end will get to reap the benefits, because now they're enjoying the work more, not because the poetry has gotten better, no, because the poetry has gotten richer. The poetry has gotten richer, and it's aged like fine wine. So now when they experience the poetry, the ones who followed me since the beginning, it hits them in a certain way because they've seen the journey, and those are the special ones that I love so much. Because my vision, my dream, my desire is to build a community.
One last question.
Nice.
What brings up the hunger for poetry in you?
This is the best interview I've ever had. What brings out the hunger for poetry in me? Can I surprise you? Do you know I've just figured that out a few weeks ago?
Wow.
All those years I've been doing poetry, I just figured it out. I like it that way because I listen to my heart, and I feel like God speaks through me through my heart, and I feel like He does that to all of us, especially as artists, right? You hear Him inspire you, whisper to you, right? Natalie, you
just feel things. You just
feel things, right?
Yeah,
so I just used to listen to my spirit and write what comes of it. So for many years I've just been a vessel. And I never ever take credit for it, because I know when I'm alone, I know I'm such a fraud, because I'm only a vessel, It's just God working His magic through me. So in essence, it's not me, and it's not about me. I am just a vessel. So that's why it is possible for me to have not understood why I was doing poetry until this moment, or what brings out the hunger for poetry in me. And I like it that way, because God has allowed for me to learn from those experiences, because He knows, He sees it all. So He knows that you will not see it now, but 2 years, 3 years later down the line, you'll see it, and then it will click. And then you feel like a child, but it clicks and God tells you, see, you could not understand it at that time. So now the answer would be this. It is expression. It is my truest self. Poetry is in the earlier interview I was telling you about healing and whatnot. It stops being about healing. It stops being about going there to seek healing and to feel good. it becomes capturing moments, recording moments. For me, I normally say all my poetry is like timestamps. By timestamps, I mean I can open any poem. Like now, I can go through any poem and tell you where this poem came from. Right? It's let me give you an example of one of my favorites. This one is called A Hungry Boy's Night. Everything is still. Trees, leaves, breeze. The pavements are broken at the sides. I'm killing mosquitoes ferociously, striking them against my skinny thighs. No grudge against their horrid bites, but can't they just do it without their annoying buzz? The place is littered. Biscuit wraps, paper bags, bad breaths, dry legs, emptiness. Occasionally, motorcycles and cars rip apart the delicate bubble of silence, but only for a moment. The rest is still cold emptiness. You see, I don't remember the date this was written, but when I was writing this, I remember that I was waiting we were traveling. So what we normally do, we have a call time, right? So we meet at the crazy, you are an actor, you know, crazy hours of the morning, right? 4 a.m. Yeah. So that was in Nairobi, and we met at one of those social halls. So we meet there at 4 a.m. So while I'm there waiting for guys to come through, I notice it is so cold, and I notice my environment, and then I write. So, but if you go deeper, it has its deep meaning, right? Of course, I was seeing the biscuit wraps and the whatever, but you know, if you want the deep meaning, then we go deep. But in essence,
how would you say what has poetry done in your life? Yeah.
Poetry has been an education in self. It's prophetic. Poetry is prophetic. I write, go back 3 years later or 2 years later, read this piece, and I realized that I am living that reality now. And when I was writing it, I was only writing what my spirit was saying. So for me, it's far from the material things, which are not as many yet. So if I would say, I've gotten some material things from poetry. I've been able to, get a few bills sorted here and there, But that would be a very cheap answer. It would be a very cheap answer because there's no limit to the material things that, like you can potentially get. Because I'm thinking with the more I do more projects, the more, even financially I'm placing myself better to benefit and whatnot. So in essence, if I were to say materially, it's a cheap answer. So poetry has taught me about myself. It's an education. And I insist on this so much because we pay attention to everything else other than the most important thing in your life, which is you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for
nice.
being in my channel.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me. I've had the most enjoyable time of my life. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So guys, that is all I have had for you today at Bahati's Diary of Art. Be sure to check out the next episode, and I will see you later. Bye.